In January of 1959, 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute prepared for what they believed would be another challenging but ordinary winter expedition. Friends, relatives, and fellow students gathered to wish them good luck before departure. Nobody standing there could have imagined these smiling faces would soon become part of one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history. The expedition spent its final hours carefully organizing equipment before leaving civilization behind. Every backpack was packed with food, warm clothing, cameras, maps, and survival gear. They had completed difficult winter expeditions before, and nothing about this journey seemed unusual. Everything was planned with confidence, discipline, and experience gained over many years together. Before the train carried them north, the group shared one final embrace. They left, smiled, and exchanged the kind of goodbye that nobody ever expects to become permanent. Looking at this photograph today, it is impossible not to notice how ordinary the moment feels, making everything that happened afterward even more heartbreaking. Another photograph captured the entire team standing together. They looked confident, relaxed, and completely unaware of the tragedy waiting ahead. Every member had earned respect as an experienced skier, and together they formed one of the strongest hiking groups at the university. Nothing in this image suggested that history would remember them for anything other than another successful expedition. The cameras also captured lighter moments before the journey truly began. The friends joked with each other, laughed at small mistakes, and enjoyed the excitement that always came before a long expedition. These photographs remind us that they were not mysterious figures from a legend, but ordinary young people filled with ambition, friendship, and dreams for the future. The first days of the expedition passed exactly as expected. Carrying heavy backpacks and wooden skis, the hikers moved steadily through endless forests covered in deep snow. Every kilometer brought them farther from towns, roads, and any form of outside help, but for experienced mountaineers, isolation was simply another part of the adventure. They occasionally stopped near abandoned wooden structures scattered along the route. These old buildings offered a brief reminder that people had once traveled through these remote mountains. After checking their equipment and taking several photographs, the group continued deeper into the wilderness without any sign that their journey was already becoming history. Throughout the expedition, they carefully documented everything. One member photographed the surroundings while another recorded daily events inside the expedition journal. Weather conditions, distance traveled, and the group's mood were all written down. Those simple diary entries would later become one of the most valuable pieces of evidence investigators ever recovered. After several hours of skiing, the hikers stopped for a short rest. Sitting directly on the snow, they relaxed, joked, and recovered their energy before continuing forward. The mood remained optimistic, and nobody appeared concerned about the increasingly harsh conditions surrounding them. At this point, the expedition was progressing almost exactly according to plan. As the forest slowly gave way to rocky terrain, the landscape became noticeably harsher. Massive cliffs and frozen slopes surrounded the group, forcing them to move more carefully across uneven ground. Despite the growing difficulty, the hikers remained confident. Winter expeditions like this demanded patience, endurance, and teamwork, qualities every member of the group possessed. The frozen rivers offered a much easier path than the thick forest. Instead of fighting through trees and deep snow, the hikers followed the wide stretches of ice, moving together in a steady rhythm. Surrounded by complete silence, they continued deeper into the northern Urals, unaware that every step was carrying them closer to the place where their journey would come to an end. Eventually, the mountain that marked their destination appeared in the distance. Rising above the endless white landscape, it seemed like just another obstacle to overcome before reaching the next campsite. The group had faced difficult mountains before, and there was little reason to believe this one would be any different. One photograph captured nothing but an empty frozen valley stretching toward the horizon. Fresh ski tracks cut across untouched snow, leaving the only visible sign that anyone had ever passed through this isolated place. Looking at the image today, the silence feels almost unsettling, as if the mountains themselves were watching the expedition move forward. Along the route, enormous rock formations towered above the frozen river. These natural landmarks helped the hikers navigate through the wilderness while also reminding them how remote the landscape had become. Civilization was now many kilometers behind them, replaced entirely by snow, stone, and endless forests. Another short stop gave the group time to recover before continuing uphill. Sitting together in the snow, they shared conversation and laughter while conserving energy for the difficult climb ahead. Even after days of exhausting travel, morale remained remarkably high, and nobody appeared discouraged by the increasingly demanding conditions. One of the cameras captured a close portrait of a team member standing quietly among snow-covered trees. His expression was calm and confident, reflecting the determination shared by everyone in the expedition. Decades later, this simple photograph would become one of the last clear images of a man whose fate remains surrounded by unanswered questions. Not every photograph documented the hardships of the expedition. Some captured moments of pure joy. One hiker playfully threw himself into the deep snow while the others laughed nearby. These images reveal something often forgotten about the Dyatlov group. They genuinely loved what they were doing and enjoyed every moment spent together. Another mysterious photograph shows a lone figure standing among the dark trees. Over the years, countless theories have tried to assign hidden meaning to this image. In reality, it was most likely nothing more than an ordinary snapshot taken during the journey, later transformed into mystery simply because of everything that followed. As evening approached, the hikers established another campsite within the shelter of the forest. The tent was carefully secured, equipment organized, and preparations for the night began. It was a routine they had repeated many times before, one built on experience, discipline, and complete trust in one another. While some members unpacked supplies, others prepared food and organized skis for the following morning. Every person had a role, and the camp operated with remarkable efficiency. Looking back now, these ordinary moments feel especially powerful because they represent the final days before everything changed forever. A carved symbol appeared on a nearby tree, left there by the indigenous Mansi people who had lived in these mountains for centuries. Over the years, many theories attempted to connect them to the tragedy. However, investigators found no evidence suggesting the Mansi had anything to do with the disappearance of the expedition. Soon, the protection of the forest disappeared behind them. The hikers stepped onto a wide, open plateau where the wind blew without resistance. Out here, there were no trees to provide shelter, only endless snow stretching toward the mountains. From this point forward, the weather would begin to dictate every decision they made. As they crossed the exposed slopes, the weather rapidly worsened. Powerful gusts of wind threw snow into the air, reducing visibility with every passing minute. The group tightened their formation and continued forward together. They had trained for conditions like these before, believing experience would be enough to carry them safely through the storm. The climb became exhausting. Every step required tremendous effort as freezing wind pushed directly against them. Heavy backpacks and deep snow slowed their progress, but turning back would have meant losing valuable time. Confident in their abilities, the expedition pressed onward toward the mountainside where they planned to spend the night. This haunting image is believed to be the final photograph taken by the expedition. Almost completely consumed by darkness, only faint traces of light remain visible. Whether caused by accident or captured during the final moments before the camera stopped, this frame marks the last visual evidence left behind by the group. As daylight faded, the hikers decided to pitch their tent directly on the exposed slope instead of descending into the forest below. The decision likely saved time for the following morning, but it also left them completely vulnerable to the powerful winds that swept across the mountain throughout the night. Nothing about the final campsite appeared unusual. The tent stood securely on the mountainside, equipment was neatly organized, and the group continued their normal evening routine. Looking at this photograph today, it is almost impossible to believe that within only a few hours every member of the expedition would abandon this tent under mysterious circumstances. When search teams finally reached the campsite weeks later, they discovered a series of footprints leading away from the tent. Strangely, many appeared to have been made barefoot or while wearing only socks. Even more puzzling, the tracks suggested the hikers had left the tent calmly rather than running in panic. Following those footprints into the forest, rescuers searched desperately through deep snow hoping to find survivors. Instead, every new discovery only deepened the mystery. What had begun as a rescue operation slowly transformed into one of the most baffling investigations in modern history. Nearby, investigators uncovered a crude shelter dug into the snow beneath the trees. Broken branches, clothing, and personal belongings suggested that at least some members of the group had desperately tried to protect themselves from the freezing temperatures after leaving the tent. Beneath a massive cedar tree, searchers made their first heartbreaking discovery. Two members of the expedition lay frozen near the remains of a small fire. Broken branches above them suggested they had climbed the tree, perhaps trying to spot the tent or escape something hidden within the darkness of the forest. Months later, after the snow finally began to melt, the remaining bodies were discovered buried beneath several meters of snow inside a nearby ravine. Some had suffered devastating internal injuries, broken ribs and fractured skulls, yet showed almost no external wounds. The findings only deepened the mystery instead of explaining it. The autopsies raised even more disturbing questions. While several hikers had clearly died from hypothermia, others displayed injuries so severe that investigators compared them to those caused by a powerful car crash. One victim was missing her tongue, while traces of radiation were later reported on parts of their clothing, fueling decades of speculation. More than 60 years have passed since the Dyatlov Pass Incident, yet no single explanation has ever answered every question. Avalanche, military testing, secret weapons, infrasound, or something else entirely, every theory leaves important details unexplained. Today, the memorial standing in these mountains reminds us that beyond every mystery were 9 real people who set out on an ordinary expedition and never came home.